broadcasting live from unknown remote locations and not their parents' basements. It's B2B Tonight with Ryan O'Hara and John Mazza, featuring growth partner at Emergence Capital, Doug Landis, and founder of the Sales Boards, Justin Michael. And now, everybody welcome our host, Ryan O'Hara.
Hello, everyone. You like that? I just opened the show with a sigh. This is Ryan O'Hara. I'm really excited. Today, we've got a really cool show. But I'll tell you what else is cool. Having John Mazza on here. What's up, John Mazza?
What's up, everybody? I am pretty cool.
You look like, with no tie on, it looks like you want to be on The Bachelor or something. Like you're trying to show people a little bit of some chest hair or something.
No, I think I just put on a few pounds and I couldn't button the top button.
Dude, no one's talking about this, but anytime that you guys see anyone online right now that's wearing a suit or a button shirt, it's stretched out. I don't know if it's like that for you, but for me it is, dude. I can't move. This is literally the pose I'm stuck in. If I move my arms up, this thing's gonna rip.
Stretchy suits. You got to buy the stretchy suits.
Yeah, that's just the nature of what happens here. So welcome to B2B Tonight. We're starting the show on LinkedIn Live. It's also simultaneously going to be behind a wall for people that have signed up to subscribe. I'm going to be honest with you. Whoa, don't leave. Listen. We're going to continue the show with our interview guests that we have. We have two really awesome ballers for guests today. But that's going to be gated behind a wall. And if you want to sign up to watch and subscribe, it's free. Go to b2btonight.com and it'll redirect you. And when you get redirected, it's going to take you to a live stream afterward. And you'll be subscribed to get alerts whenever we're going live with this show. And you can ask them questions and stuff. Feel free to do that if you'd like, by the way. And we'll man the chat and talk to people and stuff. Our two guests today are Justin Michael and Doug Landis. And I could give you intros for them, but they're pretty cool. Mazza, tell me, how long have you known Justin Michael?
I've known Justin Michael a couple years ago, for a couple years. I prospected him at two different companies and way back in the day. So it's pretty cool to be able to talk with them today. It's pretty awesome.
I once went to a conference and I asked someone, so before we're going to get to the interview in a couple of minutes, but I went to a conference once and said, hey, who knows a lot about prospecting? And someone pointed at him and said, that man over there. And I was like, oh, okay. And I went up and it was actually the wrong person. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, but it was Justin. And so Justin knows a lot of stuff. He's got a book coming out. We also have Doug Landis on, who we're going to introduce later on too. Doug works at Emergence Capital. He ran productivity stuff at Salesforce before. Has a really cool background, and he's also working on a book on storytelling and sales that we can talk about too. And it's going to get interesting. But before we do that, Maz, I want to talk to you about something that has been emotionally impacting me lately because of COVID. It's been about 1 year since COVID-19 made us all start working from home. You know what that is, Mazza?
Well, what is that? Let's hear it.
I want to talk about stock photos. So one of the things that's been driving me nuts lately is you like stock photos, Mazza?
Who doesn't love stock photos?
Nothing gets me more jazzed than stock photos. So one of the things that bothers me is the problem with stock photos today is that in 2019, we were all in the office, we're all working together and stuff. But I go to websites today and I see all these different pictures of people working in the office. It's been a year now and there's no post-pandemic stock photos. Look at this example. This is a stock photo that we actually use in documentation. This is a real one. Do you see it, Mazza?
Yeah. I mean, that's not real life. I mean, they don't really even look like they like each other.
No, coworkers don't like each other that much. Or this one. This is what this stock photo I'd call girl with crossed arms. That we use this on some of our documentation for clients and stuff.
I'd probably call it the isolated coworker. I mean, is everybody behind her kind of making fun of her behind her back?
Dude, that's really dark. You have a dark mind. Was that you growing up? Is that why?
I mean, yeah.
Anyway, we've literally used all these stock photos at work and LeadIQ and stuff. We put them on websites and PDFs and stuff. And I decided, you know what I want to do? I want to make some post-pandemic ones. And I asked Mazda to grab his camera and get together with a crew and make some post-pandemic stock photos. To get him excited for it, I made one or two to show what I was looking for. This is the first one I made. I call it Happy Guy Working from Home. And that's me working at my desk, obviously. Just seems like a pretty nice photo. What do you think, Maza?
I mean, yeah, sure. It's great.
And this is what I call concerned manager at work. I think I'm really showing off my range on this one. Like, I'm really concerned about what's going on here.
Yeah, I'm still not sure if it's real life though. You know what actually happens when you're working from home.
Oh, so you actually made some too, Miles. I haven't seen these yet.
Yep.
Do you want to show the world what they look like?
I would love to, actually. So here we go here. For the first one, I call this one important documents. Everybody has important documents that they need to go through. So I made this one over here with our producer, Nick.
I would throw that one. I would throw that one right on a website. That looks great. That would be amazing on a pamphlet. I like the TPS report too. That's a very important document.
Very important document. And for the next one, I call this the annoying coworker. Everybody has that annoying coworker is always getting in front of your face.
Maza, you're going to get people booing you over. You're calling your baby annoying? Is that what you just did?
I mean, you never know. Yes. So, for the next one, I call it that guy that forgets to mute on conference calls. What's happening in the background here?
Oh yeah. That's dark.
And for the next one, we got the furry coworker. You know, for all you pet fans out there.
I like your face there. You look like you're not happy about it.
Yeah, not usually. I mean, when the dog's stepping on the keyboard there. And for our next one, this is actually what goes on during the one-on-ones with I have with Ryan O'Hara. This is a real life photo during a one-on-one.
Oh my God. Are you so you're not paying? Well, you know, it's funny because this is me on my one-on-ones with you. So,
well, at least I'm not alone.
Now you know.
Yeah, now I don't feel bad. But not that I really felt bad before. So, anyways, here's one of a guy making a big, important presentation I made for everybody here. All right. And then this next one's just a guy on a phone. You know, we all get those phone calls.
It happens. It happens to the best of us.
And this is a sales rep after his 6th rejection of the day.
Oh.
It's a very troubling time, dark times. And, you know, we all got to stay healthy. Here's one of the new company gym. It's what the new company gym work looks like. I actually made a few of these. We'll go through these here. Yes, doing some push-ups. All right. And then we got preparing for the big meeting. This is another big one here.
You got to have those carbs, dude. You need
exactly. Carb up. And then what's actually happening during the big meeting? You know, you turn your camera off, pop on the video games, you know, actually have a good time.
Play some Madden.
Exactly. And then this is everybody else during that same exact big meeting.
Nice. That's definitely what's happening.
I mean, I just figured I'd show the real life examples of what's going on when we're working from home, and I just wanted to be real with everybody.
I don't know if we can use these though. I don't know if anyone's going to want to use these. I mean, some of them are. I mean, there's literally one with you on the phone. That doesn't necessarily land well, I think, in some pamphlets and brochures.
You never know when you're going to get a phone call, but you know, it could have been something big and important. You know, you got to pick it up. And as a gift to everybody, these photos are all available. They're free. If you want them, just let us know. We'll even send them out to you, to everybody that signed up today. So we definitely appreciate it. And for you, we made these for you.
Cool. So at this point of the show, if you haven't subscribed yet, and go to b2b2night.com and subscribe, and you haven't switched to the live feed on the website, shame on you. You make us sick. But if you're going to do that, and you do that, cool. We're going to switch off LinkedIn Live now, and we're going to jump over to the interview part. Let's get spiritual. Let's get existential here. Let's start talking about Justin Michael, Maza. You ready for this?
I would love to. I'm so ready.
Now, I want to let people know if you want to ask Justin a question, you can drop something right in the comments inside the feed, and we'll be able to see that. It's going to be emotional. Some things are going to happen, but we'll be ready, and we can go from there. You ready? Let's do this.
I'm ready. Let's do this.
So this guy, Justin Michael, want to talk about? He co-founded. He's working on something called Salesborgs. He's written a book recently that we're going to talk about a little bit. Maybe one of the most innovative guys in sales. I jokingly said this week on LinkedIn that I don't agree with everything that he does, but it doesn't mean that it's wrong. It just I just want to do that to create some confrontation here. Everybody say hi to Justin.
Howdy. How's it going?
What's up? Dude, look at new microphone, right? You're all professional now.
Yeah, I feel like Chris Walker here. I just had to feel, it's actually not on. It's just a prop. I found it.
So
Found it in a junkyard.
Just for people joining in, by the way, too, we will be having Doug Landis on soon. We're going to start with Justin for a couple minutes and then jump in and talk with Doug and Justin together. So
Awesome.
let's get spiritual here for a second, Justin. You have been working on a book, dude. What's the book about? Tell everybody.
Yeah, so I wrote a book called TQ for Technology Quotient, and the major publisher just went, yeah, that won't work because, you're walking through an airport and you see TQ, and it sort of looks like something that would be like an IRS companion manual or something, like TPS report, like TQ.
Yeah.
So they put a panel up, HarperCollins, and they interviewed 1,500 sales leaders, and they said, well, what you got to name the book is Sales Hacks. And I was like, well, you got to meet Max Altschuler at Sales Hacker and Outreach. And so I can't call my book that because we already had Hacking Sales come out. So it's called Tech Powered Sales. And it's really about the fact that everyone has a tech stack. And I call it the MacGyver because people go, I don't have a tech stack. I'm like, you have a MacGyver tech stack. You got a toothpick and a grappling hook, and now let's go rewire a nuclear submarine. We're ready.
So let me ask you this. Where do you start? Because there's tons of sales books out there and stuff already. Like there's everyone talks about predictable revenue, which is probably like a decade old now at this point, right? Like, where did you start?
Yeah, so Aaron Ross wrote the foreword, and I'm lucky enough to have Mark Roberge endorse, and Mary Lou Tyler. All of these folks are mentors of mine. What I realized is there's never been a RevOps book, revenue operations book, ever released on a major publisher. I'll be the first. And there's also never been a full sequence, to my knowledge, printed in a major publisher's book. Stuff's kind of esoteric, like writing out cadences and sequences. And what I'm doing is like blended tech stacks, automation of email, phone, visual prospecting. I'm talking about the area of sales operations and just technical selling. And what's really strange is if you're doing tech, 7 million sellers are using LinkedIn Premium or Sales Navigator. I used to work with them and for them. And then because LinkedIn is a closed system, you have to have email and phone data. And so that caused the ZoomInfo IPO. And then we're remote, so you have to have Gong. But then you have to automate it. So you need a sales engagement platform. I'm leading the witness here because one of the data platforms is obviously LeadIQ. Love you guys. But you have to use these 4 or 5 platforms. I have 2 funny expressions. Garrett McDonald gets credit from Kachava. AFL, which is another friggin' login, and FNAC, which is feature, not a company. And how many sales tools are really just a feature and not a company, right? So we have this crazy Cambrian explosion of tech. A bunch of salespeople are like, I'm old school. I just use a pen and a pad. I don't need all that. But then it's like, my mom is like, has a Gmail account. She's logged into like Zoom. She's got LinkedIn. She's power using the tech. She's a tech stack. So it's like, wait, everyone has a tech stack. So that's TQ is the answer because I write this book and M&A popcorn. Salesforce buys everybody in 2 years, like they do. Like remember they bought Buddy Media and Radiant 6 and Vitrio, like went to Oracle and the social media explosion. So all this stuff's going to get swallowed. So I wrote the book about TQ, which is technology quotient, distinct from IQ and EQ. It's your ability to fuse man and machine. Same thing you're doing learning how to drive a tank or 747. Same thing you're doing on Oracle with big databases in the 90s. It's these SDRs. I worked for some yesterday. These SDRs, they're on Clubhouse, and they're using Figma to design their visuals. I mean, these are like high TQ. They're masters of Outreach.io. They've got all the personalization feeds. I mean, the sophistication of the technical skills, 22-year-old starting out is kind of amazing. But that's a huge competitive advantage because if 2 people both are President's Club level and can sell the same, the person that has mastered their technology stack is irresistible. So it's about future proofing, and it's about learning elements of technology quotient that will be evergreen, because I really want the book to be the predictable revenue of the 2020s and to still be valid in 2030. So I went over 300 tech stacks and interviewed like 1,000 leaders, and it was brutal. It took a year to do it. My co-writer is Tony J. Hughes, who's been my mentor for 8 years. I was involved in another book called Combo Prospecting.
So you obviously, the book isn't just technology stuff either. It's also like, I've looked at a lot of the stuff that you've put together about like how to sell, what do you do on a cold call, what should you say, like what's the structure of that stuff. If you're listening to this and trying to figure out how do I actually just prospect better, I think like there's a lot of cool stuff that you know about, Justin, from your experience of doing sales and stuff, like some of the stuff you do with your Discord group, your community and stuff. Like what are some of the things that like a modern seller should be doing on a cold call, for example?
Yeah, so it's really inspired by Elon Musk. So he's like, I'm going to build rockets. And the government said, good, 5-year wait. So he's like, well, what's a rocket made out of? It's like beryllium. Okay, where can we find a beryllium mine? Okay, where are some scientists that can build rocket shells? Okay, like he just started to like deconstruct and reconstruct the rocket. I looked at SaaS, and for 20 years, like Cisco and Salesforce hit a $50 million run rate in 2002. So it's exactly 20 years to date that like SaaS began, and you have an SDR AE industrial complex, and then you have heuristic morphing. Basically, all emails and phone calls systems are like one heuristic. So I tried to break the whole heuristic. So basically, I posited two things. One, they're neuroscience based, is that email is not about words, it's visual, because the human brain as it reads makes pictures. So I started using Venn diagrams and more of a product marketer's mind to nest visuals under 100 kilobytes in emails. And I had astounding results because pictures process 60,000 times faster, and they're 90% better retained than words. So if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, the tombstone says, Justin Michael on Wikipedia proved that email is visual. That's weird. So visual prospecting is sort of my thing. I make emails look like text messages. And then phone, traditionally for 20 years, has been about tone and scripts and templates, but I figured out it's about power and power shifting. So I have this like polarity shifting theory where I do this like Aikido, where I have the prospect talking 95% of the time and I don't pitch. I keep delaying the pitch until I have this thing called vampire rule, like until the prospect actually takes interest. So I have these really weird scripts that don't look like anything ever. I just invented it. It's called Route, Ruin, Multiply. And I've been training thousands of reps on this in the Discord, which I call Salesborgs because it's Seller and Cyborg. I love Star Trek, sure, you know.
Yeah.
I'm going to assimilate the whole industry. I mean, there's a lot of satire built into all this stuff because, I mean, listen to what's coming out of my mouth. I mean, I'm either certifiably insane or about to change the world.
So you're obviously, a lot of people listening to this probably use something like a sales engagement platform, like an Outreach or a Sales Loft and stuff. Do you structure people towards sequencing a certain way or using a certain order of operations? Like I think you're big on calling first, right?
Yeah, so my whole theory of everything for sequencers comes from holography and fractals. The biggest issue in a sequencer is touch 7s to remind you about touch 6, which is the link out to a PDF. That's a huge fail. So I took this from conversion rate optimization because I'm an old SEO guy from the late 2000s. Basically, if you're on touch 7, inside touch 7 should get you to a meeting, as should touch 2, should touch 12. So the reason it's like a fractal is every email is reflective of the other thing. I do clusters. So I basically also treat every email like it's an ad unit. So you get 18 words between the subject line and the preview text to get the click. So I don't say, hope you're doing well. I don't waste it. So I have these like hyper short, painfully short emails, like marketing won't allow it. Like 1 to 3 word title, 3 sentences with a CTA. Day 2, it's bumps just the word thoughts. Day 3, it's like a Venn diagram. And it's these emails look like text messages. And where I figure this out is if you really look at like, you know, anyone who's doing something that's going to cost $1 million, like buying a home or, you know, doing something with their significant other, it's all being done with text messages. And then like even correspondence with attorneys, of course, like very short emails because you want to get billed. Like very high-powered C-level executives. I remember I wrote this really long email to a CEO, and he just typed back "rad." That's all. So like the more powerful, the more terse, because they just don't have time. Like, you know what I mean? Like if I got Mark Andreessen to respond, there's no way that's going to be 3,000 words. Or like you see Mark Cuban on Shark Tank, he's just like abrupt, and it's just this hacked communication. So I thought, wow, well, where's all the investment in VC? TikTok, Snap, Facebook Messenger, Instagram, WhatsApp, it's all short form and video too. So I just decided to morph all the techniques. At the time, I was doing ops for a company called Outbound Works, which is the co-founder of DataNice. And we had 100 startups. So we grew this thing to 10 million run rate. And I was running all the campaigns. And so I just took all the existing messaging and I like trash compacted it with no paragraphs into these weird, crazy looking structures. And they just started to go way up on open rates. We get the open rates to 60, 80%. And then I came up with the concept of emotional resonance, which is pain and fear laced into the messaging, which is really a subliminal effect. So if I say challenged by, ripping your hair out, stressed out, I'm using pain and fear words to turn it. So it's hyper short, like a text message. There's visuals, so it's processing faster, you have more retention. And then the pain and fear elements is what's getting it to convert. And so all of this put together, distributed all these guides. I have amazing things like this rep from Glassdoor. He got the PDF that's like, it's on Reddit, I'm gilded. I don't know, somebody put it up there. 2 weeks, he gets 2 meetings, $2 million, sits in the pipe, like just copy and pasting the template. Another weird one is someone had a text message app and put the calling framework in the text message app, sent 200 text messages, no meetings, used my framework, and in 15 minutes, 4 meetings. So like right off the templates I've released, there's like just binary meeting setting. But what I then do is I teach reps a science of heuristics, which means the meta frameworks. I never want them to copy templates. I want them to think in terms of humor opener, social proof, Cialdini, closure. So I'm taking them through a linguistic exercise where they're starting to think about conceptualizing what each puzzle piece of the email means as a neuroscience construct or a persuasion construct. So now they can mix and match and build email frameworks themselves. And then the last thing I'll say, just I know I'm going off, is that I have super assertive clusters because it was part of combo prospecting. So for me, it's like day 1, email, call, voicemail, phone, add on LinkedIn, hit with a tweet, day 2, thoughts, day 3. I mean, you're getting buffeted. It's a bee swarm. So you're either going remove or refer because I'm very overt and blatant that I'm a B2B seller and I'm not a sneaky marketer. I'm not like sneaking in without your permission. Like by day 3, you've gotten 7 touches from me and it's like bill collector. You're going to turn me off, but you normally in polite society, people go refer and they just help me. So I get huge referral rates in the first 24 hours versus other people running sequences. Like maybe Agoji is really effective if you add phone to it. So I like that one. And in the enterprise, you have to sometimes be a little more subtle, but some other sequences can produce, you just don't get a response. It's working, but it can take weeks. And that's when I was running the agency model, I had to get meetings quickly. So that's why I was so assertive. This is what I got. I went as tactical as I could.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's actually really interesting. One thing that if you're listening to this that you should take away from this is like, I think a lot of reps don't reference the other activities that they're doing either. Like they'll just like, it's like, hey, I'm going to call you this way. Hey, Justin, wanted to see if we could help you get leads from this LinkedIn into your CRM. And then the next email is like, hey, Justin, wanted to see if you want to get leads from this. Like they don't reference anything that they did before. And if they do, they don't hit you with a quick, like another value proposition or like they almost just treat them like they're isolated incidences. Like it's a completely different rep at a completely different company.
Yes.
And Justin, we also have a question in chat too, which I'm sure a lot of people are concerned, especially when it comes to sending images and emails. You had mentioned that you're doing it around the 3rd email. Like, are you seeing much higher, rates of those emails actually being opened and viewed by people? Or are they, a lot of them not actually making it into their inboxes?
So I've used an application called getcloudapp.com or giazzo.com that they're image converters into GIFs and they compress down under 100 kilobytes. So typically, if you think like a product marketer, you're trying to get people to this meeting where they're going to see a slide deck or a demo of something moving on the screen. And so there's usually a wow moment in a deck or there's an aha moment in the demo because a lot of these product-led growth companies, where you're not feature selling, but it's really a wow factor because it's highly technical. If you can then turn that into an 8-second GIF and nest it on touch 3. Touch 1 opens the spam aperture, touch 2 verifies it, touch 3, you're ready to send an image. So as long as it's small enough and you're careful about where you put the pictures, it's okay. Mm-hmm. And that's why no one ever did it before, really, except a company called Dogpatch Advisors, which is a really cool advisory that I met with them in San Francisco, and they're going really crazy with this. They're scraping and writing code and making completely like 200 emails where every single email pulls from different websites and is coded. Josh Brown deserves credit for turning images into websites and then nesting the websites inside the emails. There's still risk with links. So I actually just used static PNGs right in line. And if, the majority of sequences I see, they linked out to a PDF, a white paper. I don't do that. I go read the white paper. I pick the number 1 insight and either put a picture or put what it is. I keep people inside the sequence. They never bounce off. That's the key. And then I do clusters. So day 1, 2, 3, wait 48 hours, day 1, 2, 3. So I'm going through what's normally a 30-day sequence in 15 days. And then there's imagery. And then I'm also leaving voicemails to spike the sequence. What Ryan just said is a bit of a paradox because if you're short enough, There's enough social proof per vertical. I am the first person in world history to say relevance at scale, not personalization at scale. Obviously, I'm the son of a linguist, so it's the same word. There's personalization, relevance, and timing, and personalization and relevance are the same thing. It's like a Russian nesting doll, like a matryoshka. Like it's the same. Like relevance is the work pain. Like I can be like, Ryan O'Hara, I love your corgis, I love your guitar, let's hang out. You'll be like, come over to Facebook. I have still not told Ryan how I will help him at his job, or making LeadIQ better, or helping him with a work problem. So I try to get young reps to move away from the gimmicks, like, oh, connection to common, look at your awards. Also, if you're like really research someone a lot, there's like a kind of dating principle to this. It's like, you go on the date, you're like, oh, hey, I know that you really love Harry Styles. I went to eBay, I paid $367 for the first record he ever had signed. Here you go. That's what we do, is we take C-levels and we just fawn all over them, and we kill the power dynamics and the equal business stature hat tip Sandler there. So I really teach a principled disinterest where it's very consultative and the messaging is not kind of needy or over-researched. So those are some tips that are, I think, nowhere in the industry.
Great. Who doesn't love Harry Styles too?
It's catchy. I'll be honest, I can't turn that station off. It comes on the radio, you know, just cry my eyes out, Dumb and Dumber.
And also, somebody was asking about seeing an actual example of an email, but you had mentioned keeping them short like a text message. Are you talking about like one quick sentence in an email, or just like a few words?
Yeah, so there's actually something like 867 rendering types on handsets that came from mobile marketing. You'd think, how is that possible? Because Android has Jelly Bean, Pie, the Popsicle, whatever. So I take all the spacing out, so there's no formatting. It's just a brick. And I call that grammar funk. So I do like misspellings, or I funk up the grammar, or I speak in incomplete sentences. Stuff looks totally crazy because it's all a pattern interrupt that come with like 50 different types. This is what we're doing at Outbyworks, trying to program AI and ML to do this stuff and acquire a personalization engine to do it. But yes, sometimes the text is just literally all lowercase. It's half a sentence. It's thoughts, question mark. It's curious what you think about this diagram. You know, would this diagram make sense? And then you send this like weird a Venn diagram with your brand in the center and all the competitors, and then that's like a lobster trawler because it's creating selective awareness. Because the tech stacks are so brutal. Like the average enterprise in their marketing tech stack has 91 solutions. The LumaScape from Martech is 7,200 solutions, and we have 500 Delaney in just the 10-bound chart, like 500 sales tech. So usually they're going into a market and they're looking at 5, 6, 7 solutions that look the same. So when I nest the Venn diagram and they have the 7 logos, they're in a sales cycle with one of the other active logos. So that is a tripwire. I sent a Venn diagram to the chief digital officer of McDonald's, and I set the meeting on the first send out of a Gmail. Then I sent it to the VP of mobile at Home Depot, and he called my phone number in the signature. I'd been prospecting him for 5 years. That was my like flux capacitor moment where I just stood up and kind of had the chills. I'm like, I got to create Ben selling. Like, I think this is like a historical breakthrough, because I really was like trench worker, like 50 calls a day, just pounding my head for years. So it's all just kind of serendipity this came together, because the people started looking at what I was doing. I won a 10X award for doing 6 years of pipeline in 6 months. And I actually got reprimanded. Like, you can't keep showing off to all the AEs because they're getting like disheartened. Because I was like, I have a meeting with Coca-Cola. I have a meeting with, the Weather Channel, and all this stuff was going to Atlanta. And then like the CEO visited, and it was like, and then I was on the plane. It was like, oh, you're actually getting the meetings. And then I got the award. So it's like, I almost got fired for the speed of this stuff. And then I just thought it was normal. There's a lot of influencers like Brian Kruzberger, Scott Britton. There's some people who have email courses that it's kind of hidden now. Obviously, Aaron Ross was the mega trend. I look at people like Beck Holland and Josh Braun and, Kyle Coleman. And there's a lot of people talking about email writing, but mine is really radical compared to every other approach. And I've seen a lot of traditional email people going in this direction, which is like an emulation is a point of flattery, So the whole industry seems to be shifting as I populate these ideas.
Pretty cool getting in trouble for being too good at your job.
Well, the problem was I was sitting in a cubicle in Chinatown making the same phone call over and over again. And they were like, oh, this guy, he just sits in the back room and bangs the phone and says the same thing. But they didn't see that like that was just the phone touch. I was just dropping the voicemail. The emails were really elaborate, but that was just the vocal one. What I'll say is the average email gets F-scanned, triggers the amygdala for fight or flight, and takes 13.3 seconds. My emails don't trigger fear reflex. They're processed in 2 seconds. and they're just like hyper short and relevant, and like it's like if you had one elevator, one floor with Mark Cuban, what would you say? You love the Dallas Mavericks, you're great on Shark Tank. I mean, does he need another fan? How can you help him make money? Like if you had Doug Landis in an elevator, what would be the pitch?
Speaking of Doug Landis, maybe it's time that we give the people what I call the Doug attack. That did not rhyme that well. I'm kind of embarrassed by the name. I by the way, if you guys saw my face is still freezing, it's because my internet is terrible. But anyway, let's say hi to Doug Landis here. What's up, Doug?
What's up, everybody?
Whoa.
Good to see you again, Ryan.
Now that we've got the cross-pollination of Justin and Doug, we can keep doing this a little bit.
Holy shit. You want to talk about like two very different approaches to the world, to the crazy dynamics of the world of sales. Like I feel like an old an old relic compared to Justin's wildly mathematic approach to this world of engaging with customers and prospects. It's funny. Yeah, I think you asked a really interesting question. If you had Mark Cuban in an elevator, if you had me in an elevator, what would you actually say? How would you orient that? And I've got some thoughts on that. Justin, I'm curious, what would you say?
Ooh.
Wow. Like I'm in the hot seat. People are hitting me up on WhatsApp. Some of the salesborgs are writing in. I might just show them this picture and just see if it intimidated him with my wood cutting skills. That was a gift. No, I would actually say I have a system based on neuroscience that makes outbound sales emails and calls 7 times more effective. And I know you're not investing in that. Who do you know? And I would just ask him for a referral. And he'd be like, oh, my friend Gus loves that kind of stuff. Talk to him. And even a warm referral from Mark Cuban would probably like revolutionize my career. That's what I do right now. If I were cooking up a company idea, maybe I would pitch it, or I would try to add value, but it'd be kind of hard. I don't know. I mean,
so here's the thing. If you know anything about me, my last role before I was at Emergence Capital was what? What did I do before Emergence Capital 4.5 years ago?
I'm not looking on LinkedIn right
now. So for anybody else, I was the chief storyteller, right? So if you're getting in an elevator with me, whether it's 1 floor or 3 floors, tell me a fucking story.
Yeah.
Excuse my French. Tell me a story. Like
we speak French here. It's okay.
What you just fuck yeah. What you just told me was like a statistic that like I now have to. My initial reaction as human being is to refute any sort of statistic or fact that you throw out at me. But a story is much harder to actually resist. A story I can connect and engage with. So tell me a story. By the way, you can tell a story in 6 words or less. You can tell a story in 10 seconds. Ernest Hemingway proved this point when he said, "For sale, baby shoes never worn." Like we as human beings fill in all the details, right? And so my challenge is like when people come out and throw out this, hey, I've got X that can do Y. It's like, good for you, congratulations. I don't believe you, and I don't really care if it doesn't connect with me, if it doesn't engage with me, if it's not in the right form. So this is why I say like the difference between you and I in terms of our approaches is so hilarious, but also equally as effective. Like I was fascinated by what you were saying, Justin. So by the way, congratulations and high five.
Thanks, Doug.
It's amazing, by the way, how much time we spend focusing on prospecting, engaging, what have you. By the way, while you were talking, I was scrolling through the umpteen thousand LinkedIn posts that I've made over the last 3 years because I wrote something about timing and relevance regarding to prospecting almost 3 years ago. I was going to challenge you on your statistic about like you came up with this notion of relevance at scale, largely because anytime someone makes a claim, as human beings, we want to try and like where's the data, where's the proof to actually validate that. But I totally agree, and it's largely because on the flip side, outside of selling and carrying a bag forever, on the flip side, I've also been a buyer of millions of dollars of technology, and so I always approach it from my point of view as a buyer. Like, what's going to respond? What's going to get me to actually respond? What's going to get me to actually say nice work?
Doug, can I ask you a question really quick?
You may. You can ask whatever you want.
I think that's what I'm supposed to do. What's an example of a good story you heard that you're like, yep, I'm going to give you a meeting? Like, do you have anything that comes to mind that, like, from a good story that like stimulates this elevator exercise that Justin was talking about?
Well, I mean, the hard part about that, and I'm not trying to deflect, is it is also similar to what we were talking about before, meaning it has to be relevant to the person that you're speaking to, right? So I can come up with a boatload of stories, but the reality is you have to figure out how to draw the connection to the audience based on the story that you're trying to tell, right? So people don't actually do a great job of telling stories when they're trying to reach out to me, engage, and get a meeting. They just don't. It's largely because, look, the reality is most people weren't really taught how to actually become a better storyteller. They weren't taught the storytelling mechanics. Just like what Justin's talking about, the mechanics of actually how to reach out and engage, which I'm super fascinated by. This like 3 days of touches in one is incredibly. In fact, Justin, I want you to try this vehicle, not from you, but from someone else who wants to try and prospect to me at Emergence as a VC using your system. And I want to see what it's like as a recipient, because I don't fully get it, and I'm super fascinated by it. So anyway, back to your question, Ryan. Story form can be, to get my attention. Look, most people actually don't do a very good job because they don't recognize the fact that I'm in VC and I don't fucking need sales tech. Like, I'm sorry. Yeah. Quit trying to sell me sales tech. Quit thinking that Emergence Capital needs sales technology, that we need leads, that we need all this stuff, because we don't. I look at it all, I'm like, wow, you need to go take a prospecting class and do some reading because you did not do your homework at all. So I don't actually have a really good example from a trying to get a meeting with me perspective. Ryan, a long-winded answer to your simple question.
Yeah, so you're working on helping people with framing a good story, obviously, right? With your storytelling stuff. What'd you do at Box, for example, to tell a good story?
So here's the thing. Look, 7 years ago, we had hired a brand new CRO. We were about $100 million and getting ready to go public, and we feel like we needed to up-level our CRO. So we brought in this dashing young gentleman by the name of Graham Younger. He's, this Irish accent and, tall suit, good-looking bloke. And one of the things that typically happens when you hire a new sales leader is they want to go walk the floor and talk to everybody. And what they realized was, I went with him and we were talking about, like, how do you tell the Box story? And we got 25 different versions of how to talk about Box. And and this is super common, right? Go to your floor, your virtual sales floor, and ask people, like, hey, pitch Box to me, pitch LeadIQ, pitch.
Doug, we legit just did this in December. So I had everybody at LeadIQ, me and May, our CEO, had everybody at the company send a 2-minute pitch. The simulation was, pretend I bumped into you at a trade show and said, "What's LeadIQ?"
Yes, I love it.
And we just recorded a bunch of people doing it.
And how many different versions did you get?
So many, like, right? It was ridiculous. Yeah.
It's mind-boggling. And so the first thing that he said is, like, well, we've got a consistency problem, meaning, like, everybody is telling different stories and there's inconsistency of what we're trying to get across. Secondly, there was no storytelling in any of it whatsoever, right? So you've got 2 minutes, and I host pitch contests all the time as a judge, and I'm like, dude, get up. If you got 90 seconds, get up and tell me a story, because guess what? I can remember it. I can connect with it. I can engage with it. Hell of a lot easier than you spew a whole bunch of facts and stats about who you are and what you do, right? Because we spend too much time focusing on the what and the how. We don't spend enough time focusing on the why. And so the other thing that I realized was, even in our own deck that we had, that was like our first call deck, it was maniacally self-centered and selfish about us. And at the end of the day, at the end of the day, what I realized was, like, we don't know how to infuse the voice of our customers. We don't know how to build credibility. We don't know how to demonstrate empathy. Empathy was like the number one topic over the last 12 months because of what we're all going through on a global scale. And yet we talk about it. No one really knows how to demonstrate it in a conversation with a customer and a prospect. So my role of creating this role of chief storyteller was to turn everything that we talk about in terms of who we were and what we do upside down, and to infuse more stories into our conversations, and also to train everybody on story mechanics. It's really important. So, for example, companies are not fucking characters. Quit using your logo slides and saying, like, oh yeah, look at Salesforce is a customer, Box is a customer, Okta is a customer. I don't give a shit. Tell me, like, I know Ryan at LeadIQ. Ryan is the CMO at LeadIQ, and I were having a conversation about X. That's what really matters. That's what people remember, and that's what people can connect with. You talk about LeadIQ, people just don't know. Like, I don't know, what's LeadIQ? Are they like smart leads? Like, I don't get it.
Doug, I'm blowing up your inbox on LinkedIn right now. I'll just say these names: Ben Zoldan, Reverse the Thesis by Mike Bosworth, and they created storytelling. So basically, solution sales. The Godfather trains millions of reps, and he holds your thesis that it's storytelling, which is part of neuroscience in the brain. So I do actually agree. I'm a student of this stuff, and I love what you're saying. And yeah, amen to that. So I need to add the story. I need to add your story mechanics and heuristics over the top of mine. Tiny stories.
Totally. I love it. Let's do it.
Doug, do you ever talk to like Andy Raskin about like narrative science stuff? You ever talk to that guy?
Yeah, no, so Andy and I haven't had deep conversations, but yeah, like look, narrative science is like, it's the psychology of human beings, the psychology of storytelling, and there's like storytelling with data, and like I get it. By the way, no offense to Andy, I love you, Andy, but like the greatest sales deck that was ever made is actual total horseshit. Don't follow that model.
Wait, Doug, hold on. Now we need to know what is the greatest sales deck ever made, or what should you do in it?
Oh man,
Cave paintings.
man. Yeah, just baiting me. Look, I mean, here's the thing. At the end of the day, nobody has real credibility unless you're the founder and CEO of the company, right? And so what we need to do is we need to demonstrate some level of understanding and credibility based on what we have learned about people just like you. So if I'm actually going to go talk to Justin, I know he's got this like methodical process about prospecting. By the way, I grew up with Aaron Ross. And so, you know what, Justin, I might even say, this whole notion of predictable revenue, by the way, Aaron Ross, you cannot fucking take credit for that. You didn't start it. It started at Oracle because I was an SDR at fucking Oracle before he got to Salesforce. So let's just talk about that. Like let's just have a really interesting conversation about what I know and what I've learned from my experience about working with Aaron Ross, about working with Josh Braun, about working with John Barrows, who's one of my closest friends. Like this is just what I know and what I've understand and what I've learned. These are people that I've learned from, right? And so like the greatest sales deck is it's like you got to earn the right to start talking about yourself. In order to earn the right to start talking about yourself, you got to demonstrate who you've learned from, what you've learned, and what you can tell, what you can share with me about my potential world that I've never even considered myself.
So I'll give a parallel for people listening so you have a takeaway too. Like Justin, for you, for example, I remember when you were first talking to me about like what you're coming up with for a framework and stuff. One of the things you talked about is like the years of selling you've done and all the different things you've read and like thousands of sales books and like having some sort of credibility like that. Doug, you're saying basically that in order to earn that story, you have to establish your ethos, right?
You've got to share. So here's the thing, like I'll give you an example. The logo slide that everybody likes to show up. Well, look at how fucking great I am. Look at all the people that we work with and then we partner with. Good for you. Congratulations. It's all about fucking you. I don't care. You come to sell to me. I don't care about that stuff because right now you have sales and your title. Honestly, that's it. And so what I want to know is who have you learned from? So if you're gonna show me a logo slide, use that logo slide and say, this is who we've learned from. You know, talk about Justin, you want to talk about linguistics? It's partnered with, worked with doesn't mean learned from. So say learn from, use the words and then guess what? My next question is, what'd you learn?
Yeah.
Awesome. I mean, now we're in a conversation. And by the way, now you can share things with me that I may not even be aware of. And now all of a sudden you're educating me and you're building more credibility. And I know what people buy from whom? People we like, people we trust. How do you build trust? Demonstrate that you get me. Demonstrate that you've actually done your homework. Demonstrate that you put yourself in my shoes. Right? And so if you can start to share some of the things that you've learned from other companies that are just like me, all of a sudden I'm like, awesome, I want to know more.
So a big part of that is if you're getting into it's funny because we're kind of completing the full funnel here. We're talking about top of the funnel with Justin. And we're talking about once you get that meeting, what are you doing? What are you supposed to be doing on it?
Totally.
Unintentional brilliance that we did here at LeadIQ. Not intentional, not strategic at all. Yeah.
Justin,
exactly.
Justin, let's work on the next book, which combines them both.
Yes. I love it. That's the thing is my thing is open source. I created 10 guides and put them all on Reddit. It was like heretical. And then I wrote this thing called the Illuminati Manifesto, which is like, Clue Train Manifesto 1999. I take everything held sacred in SaaS and I disprove it one at a time, but in a satirical way, like Emperor's New Clothes. So you can use my stuff and fuse it with Barrows and fuse it with Braun and Holland. And it's a meta framework and it's a hack. So you could take it and throw stories through it that are succinct, and it's great. Like we blend it. It's a blender. It's like when people learn guitar, They don't just go, oh, I'm just going to play BB King. They learn Eric Clapton and Jimi Hendrix, and someone like John Mayer is not sitting around only learning one. So when I
Yeah.
teach people email, I actually tell them, go buy these courses.
Yeah,
Go study these other people.
Totally. By the way, I'm Justin, one of the things you did two things that are actually really powerful in storytelling if you want to get better at it, using analogies and metaphors. And one of the things that, Justin, this is just feedback for you. Some of the shit you're spewing earlier, I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, you are operating on a whole nother galaxy here, my friend. Like, it's just like everyday speak and everyday language. And it's a great reminder for everybody. Yeah. Like,
Iron Man.
I feel like I'm talking to Tony, I'm like, dude, what, the one thing that he did really well, though, is he took these really complex ideas and he made them really simple, like very human. And I'd say that's the other thing. Like, far too often we get caught up using our own language, and it's hard to remember that, like, that again is still more about us versus them. And so using analogies and metaphors are a great way it's a great vehicle for actually taking complex ideas and making them simple. And by the way, it also works quite well in emails.
Doug, when you work on your so when you're working at Emergence, for example, are you kind of just listening for great stories? Is that kind of like what you're saucing up to decide if something's worth it?
Well, no, I mean, look, there's a science to what we feel like makes a great investment. Just for context, by the way, Emergence Capital, we're an early stage B2B SaaS venture capital firm. We do A's and B's. Hyper focused on B2B enterprise SaaS. Our first investment was Salesforce, which wasn't so bad. We started off with a hypothesis that basically was all software was going to move to the cloud. I think that was a pretty good bet 16 years ago. Salesforce, Yammer, Box, Viva were the first investors in Salesforce and Zoom.
We can only hope that this is going to be true.
Yeah, right. Only knock on wood. But look, at the end of the day, it's interesting. We have a method that, of course, we're looking for in terms of like, how do you know if this is going to be an iconic software company? We don't care necessarily about buyouts. We want to build big publicly traded software companies. But what's really interesting, whenever a company comes in to pitch, I'm always looking for the stories. Our finance guys are like, they're looking for the numbers. Show me the data. Show me the numbers. Show me the model. The projections, what have you. To me, I'm like, dude, what's the story here? Like, what are you saying? And so I'll tell you, even if you're out going to pitch to investors, like, start with an effing story. And I see a lot of these startups that have these like summary slides, like, hey, here's our graph up and to the right. Well, fuck, it better be. Otherwise, why are we talking? And like, it's funny because that first summary slide, again, I kind of feel like it's a Kanye West slide. It's like, hey, this is all about us and look how great we are. But I'm still missing the story behind it. Like, why'd you start this company? Why you? What makes you so unique and different that we should? Because look, at the end of the day, in the world of venture, we're in the people business. We're not in the finance business. We're not in the tech business. We're in the people business. And when we're investing you at Series A, we got an 8 to 10 year tranche together to go fight this good fight with you. And so we're betting on you.
The same way too. Like,
totally
if you think about it, it's the same exact. Like, all right, dumb question. I know that people listening to this are probably like, why are you talking about this so much? Have you ever seen an investor that does a sales pitch to you on their company, telling the story, and it's like, how different is that actually? I know you go into financials and stuff, but if you think about like the structure of a story, it should be the same story you're telling on a pitch with a customer, right?
Yes, but clearly your audience is different, right? So the story is going to needs to be tweaked. It needs to be modified. I mean, that's the other thing about storytelling is just make sure that your story is relevant to the audience. The other thing is just make sure you've got a really, really clear point. I mean, same thing in selling, same thing in prospecting. What's your point? What are you trying to get across? You want a conversation? You want a reference or referral? Awesome. Tell me that. Be really clear about what the point is that you're trying to make. And the same thing happens in a sales conversation, whether it's a sales presentation, a sales meeting, whatever it is. Like, if I don't know where the hell you're going with this, it's really hard for me to actually make a decision to help you, right? Ideally, you want me to help you help me. Yeah. Say that 10 times fast. I think the challenge is people just get lost because they haven't been really thoughtful about what the point they're trying to make is.
I've taken frantic notes so I can understand Doug's love language.
I wanted to let everybody know in chat, if you have any final questions to ask Doug and Justin over here, please send them over into the chat. All right.
Hey, Justin, let me ask you something that's more top of the funnel to kind of splice in, and I want to get Doug's on the deeper level. When you work with people that you're helping with right now, how do you do with value proposition stuff? Like, what let's say I'm a client and I'm working with you, Justin, like, and I'm like, oh man, our value props for prospecting aren't that great. Like, where do you start on that end?
Yeah. So people buy an emotion and they close on logic. So I think the vast majority of what I see in emails is like a quantified result, like 117%. It's like some statistic that like a CFO would love.
And no one's gonna believe it, by the way. No one believes it. Oh yeah, I don't like. No one believes it. I don't know you. How the hell am I supposed to validate that?
Yeah. So actually, to Doug's point, there has to be some kind of hook in there that's differentiated. Like, what's the thing that it does that no one else really can do? What's the moat? And if it's a pure commodity, what is it about your company and the one sales analysis that thrills the customer that renews?
Yeah.
There's got to be something.
Or Justin, let's take it a step deeper. Again, that was a lot about the what or the how. Let's talk about the why. Why? Like why? Okay, cool. So like look right now in the world of sales engagement, there's a lot of different solutions. There's a lot of different way to eat that elephant. Like, why are you better? Why are you different? Why are you unique? Why should I even pay attention to you? Why should I listen to you? Why should I care? Why should I even open this email? I want always, a great opportunity, a great exercise is continue to ask why.
The 5 whys, yeah, or Kaizen. So yeah, I have the golden circle from Simon Sinek. And the thing about me is I was talking to Marco Berge the other day, and I quoted 5 books, and he's like, you're like the Einstein of books. And it was funny because 10 years ago, Scott Leese is like, hey man, like you're good with books. Like, can you sell? Why don't you go learn how to sell? And so I moved to San Francisco, worked for Salesforce, worked for LinkedIn, then I moved to New York, then I moved to Seattle. I just buffeted myself with all these SaaS roles. And then I'd done enough application to prove the books. But it's like heliskiing. It's like, okay, I'm going to drop you into fresh powder on a black diamond with moguls. Just read this book. You'll die. And
totally.
Selling's the same.
How do you, let me ask you this. So
Justin,
Doug,
you're killing me. By the way, I love Mark. Mark's a good buddy of mine. I fucking love that kid.
He's a good dude.
Long hippie hair.
So Doug and Justin, let me ask you guys something, because a lot of people hear these different figureheads talk about best practices. Hell, I'm a jackass. I got a stupid Muppet haircut, and I'll go put stuff out online too. How do you know who to listen to? Like, what do you know what works and what doesn't? Is it just going to try stuff and like trial and error, or is it like, is there anything you can do to kind of sniff like, wait a minute, what that person's saying might not work?
Oh, I mean, look, so Justin has credibility because he's done it. And I think the challenge that I have are the people who claim that they're some level of expert in something that they haven't fucking done the actual job themselves. I totally lose respect for them, because it's like you're doing everybody else a disservice because you actually haven't done it. So for example, if you're an SDR, a BDR manager, and you're going out there trying to teach people on like how to sell and how to close deals, fuck off. I'm sorry, but you haven't actually closed the, like you haven't, you didn't have a deal coming at the end of the quarter that you thought was all in, and all of a sudden, guess what? They lost power and they couldn't get you the signed PO in time. By the way, we used to deal with fax machines when I was at Oracle, and they were like coming in, right? And we had green screen applications back in the day. But at the end of the day, it's like all of a sudden the fax machine goes down. It was fucking pandemonium in the company. Like people are not texting, actually, emailing, use this fax machine number because it's downstairs in the other floor in order to get the deal in. Like, unless you've been in those shoes and, kind of worn the hat, it's really hard to trust that you actually, know what you're talking about.
What about you, Justin?
Yeah. So for me, I took on a mentor 8 years ago named Tony J. Hughes and co-wrote it was a case study in combo prospecting, which is like blended methodology. And now that's how I got this book deal with HarperCollins. Tony ran Asia Pacific for Sugar CRM and then OpenText. So he's like an operator from the old guard. And he got me really interested in a syllabus that included like Jeff Tull and like mastering the complex sell, and also new power-based selling, which was by Jim Holden. So I went back and read all these dusty books from Big Hardware, and everyone's like, "Oh, sales is modern now," but this brain's 40,000 years old. This version, same brain. So go study 7-figure selling, because it's hard getting humans to all spend millions of dollars and like risk, and it could break. It's still hard. So I respect that generation, and all my mentors were like big Oracle, like Taz, Battle Plan, Art Jacobs, Miller Hyman. I've been deep trained on the down funnel, and I've done a lot of 7-figure deals and SaaS deals myself, really fast using trigger selling and things. So Go study old stuff. It's not popular on LinkedIn feed. I'm not mocking the people who are there. They're great. But a lot of what they're doing is demand gen and marketing analysis.
Dude, Justin, I'm high-fiving you big time right now. I totally agree. Look, I came from the old school Oracle days, man. I'm certified in spin selling, TAS, Miller Hyman, gold sheets, gold sheets, yellow sheet, blue sheets. It's like, I get it. Like,
I'll add something to that too. So when I came out of college and I worked at infrastructure as a service. I worked at Dine, and I was a BDR there. While I was working there, all the reps that we brought in for like that second wave after we raised money were all these guys that like sold Xerox for 10 years, and they were the best
selling the
reps
Vito,
in the
baby.
world, dude.
Selling
They were amazing. Like there's this guy Bobby Condon who was the first rep hired at Fastly. They're now an IPO'd company too. I watched Bobby cold call American Test Kitchen and talk to this guy named Rocco on the phone for 10 minutes, and the guy sent a contract after the first call. And I was like, "How the hell did you just do that?" And I was like the prospecting guy that like could break into places, and I just like learned so much just being around those guys that had done the same thing as what worked probably 100 years ago.
Yeah, so I have 20,000 hours on a telephone. I'm 41. I started at 21 as a rep, making minimum wage in a telemarketing call center. Worked my way all the way up without a college degree to Salesforce, LinkedIn. I don't know how they let me in. But yeah, I've sent over 1 million emails, and I've blown through $3 million doing A/B tests on email. And thank you for the investors, for True Ventures and Lars Nilsson, the people that believed in us, and that got acquired. So I've done a lot of crazy stuff and like gone up in space and looked at it. And it's weird because Jeremy Donovan goes and actually does the science to test the emails, and he's finding things that I already saw empirically when I was, just hacking it. So
yeah, totally. So there's a 1-2 punch for you right there. I love that. That's awesome. By the way, Ryan, to your comment though, the old school, Oracle, SAP, PTC guys. By the way, that's a great. You got to remember that it's a different motion, by the way, than the high transactional volume inside sales motion. There's definitely differences, so it's important to remember that. It's appropriate for whatever your audience is.
Yeah. Well, we should wrap up because we only have you guys for an hour, and we're getting near the end here. Couple things I want to do. I want to thank you both for coming on. I'm going to give you guys a chance to plug something. So, Doug, I know you're working on a book. Justin's got a book coming out soon. Let's start with Doug, and then we'll go to Justin to close it out, and then I'll say goodbye and weep. But go ahead, Doug.
Look, I don't like plugging things. Just
okay.
My only thing that I say is like whatever you learn, put it to practice, test it out, and then share your experience with other people because that's also how we learn. But I will say, if you have a great startup idea that's in SaaS, you're at about $1 million in revenue, come talk to me. Just shoot me a note. I'm at doug@mcap.com. And yeah, I do have a book coming out. It's called Storytelling for Selling, but y'all see about it on LinkedIn when I post it.
Go add Doug up on LinkedIn. Check him out. He's awesome. Thank you very much for being on, Doug. Justin,
this is awesome. It's really fun. Thank you.
Justin, you want to give us the deets?
I had such a blast. I mean, I'll just let me show malleability and adaptability. Let's all just go read about storytelling and read Doug's book. And you'll find I'm everywhere. I'm blasting off in LinkedIn all the time. You can't miss me, Justin Michael. And I've coined this term called Salesborg, which is seller cyborg. So if you ever hear of a Salesborg, I get a disgusted voice, but we're going to turn it like Tesla of B2B. That's like going to give some paint job, put lipstick on the pig. So that's my goal.
Justin, we can work on that sales board bit and like the narrative around that, because what you're saying underneath that, I think actually is even more powerful than sales borgy. We're like the Tesla for selling, I think is pretty appropriate. Let's work on some of those analogies.
Thank you. I'm learning. Yeah. I can be taught.
I love it.
Well,
man.
Everybody, thank you very much for coming on. We'll be sending a recording out to people. If they didn't get it, you'll be able to watch it. It'll be emailed tomorrow, the day after. 2 weeks from now, we've got a cool show. Mazza, who's on in 2 weeks?
Oh, in 2 weeks, we have Alex Greer and Nikki Ivey.
Cool. Alex Greer works at Bombora, and Nikki Ivey runs the SDR Defenders. Really great, important content that she's putting out there. Mm-hmm. We're really excited to talk to them. So hop on for that show. We'll see you guys next time. Doug, Justin, thank you. Mazza, no thank you. Please don't ever come back.
Yeah, I probably won't. Jeez, these guys are amazing. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Man. All right.
We'll see you guys.
Great to see you, Doug.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Love you, everybody.
Yeah,
thank you.
Love you. Thank you for coming.
Wow. Are we done? Did we do it? We didn't do it.